presenters and any people testifying, please state your name clearly and your position before beginning. This meeting is called to order at 12:02 p.m. We'll open the meeting with public testimony. Kenny, do we have any signed up?
Yes, Chair. Charles Izumoto.
Aloha, chairs and chair and members. Charles Izumoto on behalf of State Representative Matthew Lopresti submitted written comments, and hopes that you will take that into consideration. Feel free to contact him. Thank you very much.
Thank you. No more testimony. Thank you very much. If there is no more testimony, we'll move on with the agenda. You have before you, ladies and gentlemen, the minutes of our April 19, 2016 meeting. If there are any amendments, we will take those now. Otherwise, there is a motion to adopt. Move in second to approve our April 19, 2016 Finance and Infrastructure Committee minutes. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Okay, thank you very much. We will move on. We will now move on to the presentation of discussion items, starting with the presentation on the updated Department of Education fiscal reports as of March 31st, 2016. I'd like to call forward Ms. Senior Assistant Superintendent and Chief Financial Officer of the Office of Fiscal Services to present on this matter.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. So this is our standard quarterly reports. Formats have not changed, so I will run through some highlights. The first report attached is the general fund expenditure variance report, which compares through 3 quarters, so as of March 31st, 2016, fiscal year 15 to the year-to-date actuals fiscal year 16, again through March 31st. No huge major variances, NED 400 in that area. That variance is driven by bus and food provisions being paid or encumbered in this quarter. And then the bottom of that sheet compares 3 quarters of the fiscal year 16 allocation with, again, the fiscal year 16 year-to-date actuals. In that area of note in EDN 200, the variance is from the assessment needing to be paid, school transformation, and national board certified teachers. All those payments need to be made yet, so those are still planned, and those will happen during the 4th quarter here. Any questions before I move to the next report?
Yeah, I have a question. First question is, in terms of EDN 150, has the department reprogrammed monies for special education expenses that were as a result of vacancy funds?
Yes, so we are closely monitoring this. We have been working with Suzanne Mulcahy, the Assistant Superintendent for OSIS, to go through programmatic needs where we can get these monies out to the districts to support the schools.
So is board approval not necessary for that?
Not necessary. It's within our,
So is it being done?
the funds going out.
For the school year is almost over.
Yeah, I know, yes. So we have been pushing funds out. There's some shortfall areas that we're aware of. So we have been pushing that money out to cover those areas.
Can I get a report?
We can do that, yes.
I only have a couple more meetings, so I would appreciate it if somebody would follow up.
Okay.
The next question I had was the 400, it shows the remaining negative balance. What's the sort of?
So there could be a variety of issues there. The majority of EDN 400, of course, is food service, transportation. There's repair and maintenance expenditures in there as well. I'll have to check on that. It's only at 5%. We are monitoring to make sure that we'll be okay. What happens is, because this is expenditures and encumbrances, we probably encumbered, like the bus contracts, we know what those are for the whole year. So we've encumbered it, but we don't have that 1 quarter of the allocation yet accounted for in the 4th quarter. That's probably what's driving that.
It would be good if you checked, updated the chair on that matter.
Okay.
Matt?
Thanks, Chair. Amy, on the, just trying to get clarification on the reason for variances in the heading. Was there a rationale behind having variances greater than 10% being explained and then under 10% not being applicable? I'm trying to understand the rationale for it.
It's a number I picked. So even though like in EDN $140 million is a large dollar amount, it's a 6% variance, which as a percent of the total, we're really looking for some of the large glaring items, and I thought 10% was a good standard for that.
And then can you explain again, or clarify for me on EDN 200 at the bottom, what this HCPS is, the payments that you said need to be paid? I'm not sure what the payments represent.
So these are payments, so the assessment, HCPS is it'd be the science assessment. We just need to pay those bills. So the allocation has happened, but the large payments in those areas have not been made yet.
So the bills represent,
The bills will be coming in fourth quarter.
I'm trying to understand what the payments represent. Are they membership payments, are they subscription payments, are they?
No, so like the assessment payment would be for our entire testing budget, or a portion of the testing budget.
So you get national support.
No, this is all general funds. So this is, for the assessment piece, that would be to pay for assessments that were given in our schools now. So those bills will be coming in fourth quarter, we'll pay that. School transformation, we have a new program manager in there. So that is just again invoices that have not been processed during the third quarter that will be paid in the fourth quarter. That school transformation helps our focus and priority schools on their efforts and their focus on turning around those schools. And then the National Board Certified Teachers, that's a collectively bargained item that will be paid in the fourth quarter to those board certified teachers that qualify.
Maybe we can take it offline and can get educated on those.
Okay.
So I understand.
Any other questions before Amy moves on to?
Thank you, Amy. School transfer buses, page 1 and 2, I guess. Help me, this is the number I recall when we first, the school board members got here, that was out of control literally, it's dealt with for 5 years. Am I reading it correctly? The expenditures for 12 were 73 million. Dropped to 67, dropped to 66, stayed at 66, and now what is our projection for fiscal year 16? In other words, that basic bus trans, which is a remarkable job, I just want to acknowledge the department. We haven't really deteriorated service, but we maintained those numbers on a downward, relatively speaking, which more money went to the classroom as opposed to transportation. But am I reading it correctly?
Yes, you are.
And then on the general fund, same thing. The general fund, the taxpayers have to pay us, has dropped from 73 million down to 63 million. Correct? Speaking of the bus guy.
Yeah, that's correct. So Dan Carlson, you want to speak to the changes that we made in transportation?
Sure. You're exactly right. We had a reduction. The reality is in the upcoming years, we have a 2% escalation fee in most of our contracts. So as much as we cut, as much savings as we've seen, again, that 2% escalation is obviously going to be part of that.
So the 49.5, I assume that's for 9 months in fiscal year 16.
Correct.
Can we annualize that? Is that, in other words, Is there any surprises there? That's pretty flat line. In other words,
It's spread throughout the year.
it's pretty equal. In other words, it's not going to be like $100 million or something.
We expect to be at budget at about the 65, 66 million level. You can see on the back of page 2, where you can see the encumbrances that we have
I see a
on the
surplus.
general fund. So you have the $15.85 million where we've encumbered 14.9, leaving us about $600,000. There could be late fuel adjustments and things coming.
So that's roughly what we got left to pay for the quarter, the 15 million.
Yes,
And then on the,
actual checks to write, yeah.
on the expenditure side, so the legislature gave us 63.5 million for fiscal year 16.
Correct.
That's the whole, that's not 9 months, that's for the full 12
That's
months.
the whole, yes.
So again, from 12 to 16, we cut $10 million out of the transportation budget,
Correct.
in spite of the fact of service levels. I don't think it was significant impact.
Correct.
Then on food service, I'm trying to get a similar handle on that. So the legislature gave us 22 million in 12 and 26.5 in 16.
Correct.
And yet, if I look at the grand total expenditures, it's relatively flat, 105, 105, 105. So why do we pick up 4 more million even from the?
So the food service, you really have to look at this in total. Once we put the general fund allotments into the school food service accounts, it all takes on the characteristics of federal funds. So all 3 of these buckets come into play. The federal amount is the actual free and reduced lunch reimbursements that we receive from USDA. And the special fund is the payments for the paying students. So all 3 of those combined, we'll use fiscal year 15 because that was a full year. We had about $115 million of funding to utilize, and then we actually expended about $105.5 million of that. So again, it's all the buckets. So what we tried to do is assign employees and staff to these different funding sources to utilize it, and then we're not having to move charges around to balance it through the year.
Take too much time. So what you're saying is the 26 million, 0.5 that's given to us in 16, it's not a line item specifically from the legislature, that's what
No,
we
it
have?
is. So that is a general fund expenditure bucket. But then if you look at the federal funds, in fiscal year 15, we received 64 million, which was an extra month payment, but we do expect to receive 12 months worth of, well, school year, 8 months worth of reimbursements in fiscal year 16. So those are equal. So we would expect to see that about $50 million level for reimbursements on the federal side.
I guess the good news, the state taxpayers pay about 25% of our food bill.
Correct.
And you have an excess of 7.4 million in that account.
Well, so we are allowed by federal law to maintain 3 months of a operating capital cash. So this is, what was it, 3 years ago when the federal funds were sequestered. That also halted the USDA reimbursements for the free and reduced lunch meal applications. So the state of Hawaii, the DOE was able to manage that without going back to the state of Hawaii to make up that difference. We were able to continue feeding our students without having additional state funds kicked in while we waited for the federal reimbursements to catch up because of sequestration. And there's also supply and timing things that happen, especially the start of the school year, where we're ordering supplies, the students aren't paying for those meals until a few weeks later. So it's kind of that supply and then the usage of that happens, the startup costs. So.
Just last question. So on the bus, I recall this was a crisis for, gosh, a couple of years.
Yes.
Are we basically out of the woods?
I think so. I think the only unknown, we still have to go through the contracting for Hawaii and Maui. So we have not renewed our contracts on those two. That actually was to our advantage because the way those contracts were written, they were actually somewhat beneficial to us. So we're not sure, that's probably the one unknown we have right now is just when we rewrite those contracts, any expected, there could be a slight increase just based off the fact that they.
The service levels, I think for the school year coming up, we tell the public, we expect no disruption or significant changes in routes or anything else for our school year.
We're definitely not
We're
sure.
financially in good shape. Thank you, Chair.
Any other questions on student trans or school food?
Is that one more question, sorry?
No, mine's on impact aid, so whenever you.
So just a question again, if I reconcile this, on the school food service, you got 92 million in 2016. In revenues, expenditures are 78, 79 million, so you got a surplus of 13.6, 13.7. What happens to that again?
So keep in mind that we only, that's 3/4 of expenditures. So there's, this is through March 31st, so we still have April, May food costs and labor in order to feed our students for April and May. And then there's also summer payroll that we carry some folks over summer and they're cleaning kitchens and doing other kitchen duties. So we don't, I mean, we try to monitor and watch this, but the special fund revenues, there's still 2 months of those collections yet. So students will be paying for meals throughout April and May. And then the federal fund reimbursements, there's a couple more months that will be reimbursed on those as well. So when I come back with the June 30 report, we will know exactly what the operating cash balance is. And then we do a calculation between Dan's office and my oversight office to make sure that we don't exceed the 3 months operating capital that's allowed to be maintained in there.
But based on your forecast, the expectation is that you stay within the budget.
We'll be very close to that 3 months, yes.
Thanks.
Okay, and we'll be covering utilities and impact data as well.
Yes, so utilities, again, that's a relatively new report. This is the second time this is in front of you. So this goes through the appropriation on the top with the restriction, with how much has been expended and encumbered so far this year, leaving us balance yet to expend a little over $18 million. Then we break down the expenditures by object code or what type of utility. So utility, the majority of it is electricity, but then we have other pieces with gas, water, sewer. And then we break it down by vendor, so you can kind of see by island and by vendor how much we're paying for that water, sewer, and electricity. We've also made notes in that area of the alternative energy costs. So we do have, through our power purchasing agreements, how much we're paying for that electricity to those vendors. On the back page goes into breakdown of cost by month. So you can see that rolling forward. You can see that in this fiscal year, we're running a little bit higher again because of how hot it was when we started the school year. And then we have breakdown of usage by kilowatt hour, again by month, and then a final usage, which is $1 per kilowatt hour. So we are monitoring all of this. Again, because of low oil prices, we are experiencing very low cost per kilowatt hour right now. So that's allowing us to not need the budget restriction, the $4 million that the governor imposed in September. We will not be asking for that back at this time. We think we'll finish the year with enough, so we don't need that, again, due to low oil prices. So we'll continue to watch and monitor this. Yeah, again, relatively new report, but with everything going on in heat abatement world, it's going to be important to continue to monitor this because utilities is such a large piece of our budget.
Okay, any questions on utilities?
I'm a little confused. You said that it was, looks like fiscal 16 is going up. Looks like if I annualize it, your kilowatt usage and your cost Well, first, you look down below, clearly the cost per kilowatt is down significantly,
Correct.
right? Which is, that's a result of fuel or? is it
Oil prices.
Purchase price, the PPAs we have?
No, it's, could be a little bit of that, but the majority is gonna be the cost of oil barrel right now, price of oil.
And then if, to me, we need to pay attention to the kilowatt usage with the introduction of all the air conditioning and what have you.
Correct.
Because that oil is not something to count on. So you have a slight increase from 14 to 16 in usage kilowatt. Now, if I annualize, divide 133 by 4, divide that to your last fiscal year, you get 127. So it looks like our actual usage for 16 might be down.
No, because if the percentages in those columns are year-to-year variances, so that 10% in July shows that we, between 15 and 16, we increased our kilowatt hours, so the usage by 10%,
Yeah.
that one?
Jim is right. Somehow I was thinking it was 3 months left to go. You have 4 months left to go here, right?
Correct.
He's right. And that's the same thing to a dollar amount.
Yeah, and that's due to the timing of when we receive bills, so make those payments.
Yeah. You do a month-by-month comparison, it's quite a, looks like about a 10% increase.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is the additional monies we ask for utilities for fiscal 16, you're saying we probably don't need, the cost will be relatively flat.
Correct, and we actually, I think before the board last fall, we asked for over $9 million in a utility budget for next fiscal year. During the session, because of current information that we have and the price of oil, we adjusted that down to about $5 million, and that's what we passed away. But again, closely have to monitor, because you move, if we apply this year's usage to last year's cost per kilowatt, it's substantial.
And that's probably, I think when you do the budget for the next year, it'll be here, but I think you need to give scenario A, B, C for the board to ensure they understand the range. This could be, it's not something we manage that well.
Correct.
I mean, we have management, but, and then with the introduction of the new air conditioning, it can be quite a large line item and won't impact the cost of the classrooms.
And again, one of the big reasons why we introduced this report was to have a frequent monitoring tool so that everybody can see.
I think missing that BPA piece as to what the savings are there.
Yeah, and I mean, it's factored into the kilowatt hours, and then again, we have it broken out for the vendors that we're paying, but we can figure out what that delta is on how much we're
Lastly,
generating.
there is some savings for all the painting we did on the high school. The air conditioning is important, but the mitigation of heat
Yes.
in the rooms with fans and all that, we actually save energy. So not use AC as much.
And, some of this is driven by technology in schools too. So we're adding more computer labs or more scenarios where schools are trying to go one-to-one. So all of that technology being plugged in is driving that usage as well.
So not today, Chair. Have we looked at retrofitting all the schools with different types of fixtures and those kinds of things? Is that?
Yeah, I'll let Dan talk to the one school that we have as a pilot that we've used as an example for that.
And also water cost, et cetera. It's not just power. There's
Right.
we have sewage costs and all kinds of costs.
We've got a few examples out there, some elementary schools that we've gone in and just replaced the lights with LED lights. And we've seen up to a 20 to 25% reduction in usage of those schools, particularly the schools that do not have air conditioning.
20 to 25% drop in kilowatt usage.
Again, in those smaller elementary schools where the majority of their power load is due to lighting, again.
They're not air conditioned.
Now, we do have a project in Hawaii. We're in the construction phase right now, and this is what Optera kind of brought to us, was we knew that school was near its electrical capacity. So we had to do something. They wanted to add air conditioning this last summer. We couldn't do it. We couldn't even plug in our portable units because the load was too much. So they've gone into that school and they've done an energy audit there. All the lights with LED lights, stuff like the walk-in refrigerators and freezers and whatnot. Replaced a lot of the components on those, compressors on those, to find all the efficiencies they could. process of doing that, they've been able to install school AC units that, again, are high SEER rating type of
And you
places.
use them individually as opposed to turning the whole system on.
Right. So again, the proposal there is that, again, we're going to be about a net zero, no increase in the usage. That's
I would take a look at water also, especially places like Maui.
Yeah, hydroponics projects are really driving water. So, stimulated items, that's really driving water usage.
I'm assuming you're going to go over the facilities and development branch quarterly report now. Then maybe I might have questions.
Let me stop quick on impact aid first. So we did receive the bulk payment for fiscal year 16 from the application that was submitted last year. We continue to monitor this and the cards being turned in. Plus, we got 2 prior year payments in that area, so no concerns that we have there.
Okay, Jim?
Thank you. How is impact aid, the charter school share of impact aid, how does that, I know per pupil funding goes through B&M, but impact aid, does that come through the department?
Yes, so we get full receipt, and then based on student enrollment percentages, we give charter schools their share, even if they don't turn in cards.
So you take the percentage of enrollment of charter schools divided by the total enrollment, which includes charter schools and DOE.
Correct.
And then get that percentage, multiply it by this 40.3 million. I know it all come in at the same, but when you add it all up,
Yes.
and you send that to whom?
The charter school commission.
Commission office.
Yes. Okay.
Can I ask a question about the?
Yes.
Just want to make sure I understand this correctly. I'm sorry. I want to make sure I understand this correctly. Our appropriation ceiling is 55 million. So we earmark impact aid funds to meet our substitute teacher
Correct.
requirements.
Yes.
So we only spend what is actually received in that fiscal year. We exceed, for example, in fiscal year 15, we only collected 33 million. Did we spend more than 33 million in fiscal year 15?
Yes, so, well, we use the fiscal year 15 receipts and expended in fiscal year 16. So the reason we started doing that was because we don't receive this major payment until February, March timeframe. And we were very nervous. And if last year we only got a $27 million number and we do expend 40 or 45 million, then we're in sheer panic mode the last 3 months of the fiscal
So
year.
should the next biennium budget have some adjustment for our appropriation ceiling so that there can be some reconciliation at some point?
So in the, I think we had that ceiling decreased in this budget cycle. I'll verify that in the report, but I think we dropped it $10 million. Thank you.
Well, it was 8 from 60 from fiscal year 14 to 15, but it's maintained from 15 to 16.
Correct.
So what I'm kind of suggesting is that the biennium upcoming, there should be a further reduction in order to do a reconciliation of the downtrend that's occurring. And I'm just having a discussion with you so there's some thinking about it, because I'm concerned that if we continue having this problem, sooner or later we got to pay a piper.
So I think it was a request that we made to actually decrease the ceiling for fiscal year 17, just to keep it in line with closer to what we expect the receipts to be. So about 45 million is closer to what we need. I don't see it on my list, but if it wasn't approved in this legislative cycle, we will request it in the biennium. I do look at ceilings because ceilings can be misleading, because when we look at our our budget pie chart, it shows that we have a $55 million available funds, but that's not really true. So
Well,
I
I'm
tried
kind
to
of
show it
suggesting the
this way.
city should be more like 40 million, not 45. If you look at the trend from fiscal year 14,
But if I get 45, I'll spend 45.
Chair,
you know,
if we do that, then if you get a little more, you can't spend it.
Correct.
the only concern is that they're spending more than they're getting. Are you spending more than you're getting?
I can't expend over the ceiling,
Right.
but
But you can expend more than the appropriation that you receive.
I can expend, yes, up to the ceiling.
Up to the ceiling. And what you receive is maybe less than,
Possible, right? So we had to account for the lower fiscal year 15 amount.
right.
I had to make some plans and adjustments to make sure that I could cover also teacher costs for this fiscal year using that $33 million.
So that's all I'm saying. Is that I understand the concept of having a ceiling and spending up to the ceiling, but there needs to be some recognition. So if you can always go in and I think the board can modify or request for a modification and increase the ceiling during the fiscal year, right?
Depends on the type of fund, but yes, we can go to the governor's office and get some ceiling adjustments.
If you receive one impact aid money.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Brian. Any other questions on impact aid? There are none. Maybe you have more?
Okay, so the final report is the Facilities Development Branch quarterly report through the end of March. You can see some major projects that went out to bid this quarter, and then the change in the fiscal and financial activity. We provide for you both the December 31st, so at the end of second quarter report and the third quarter report, and the variance is on the December 31st report as it compares back to the March 31st report. Any questions on that?
Okay, if there are no questions, we will move on. Our next agenda item is a presentation on the update of the private education's fee abatement program, including progress made since this committee's last meeting. Dan Carlson, Assistant Superintendent of the Office of School Facilities and Support Services. Dan.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, members. A lot's happened this last month. Last month, we were waiting on basically the funding and the bills to push their way through. And happy to say SB 3126 passed. The governor quick turned that. We're very thankful for that. And on 5 May, he signed that into law. As early as 5 May, we started putting some projects out for bid, having the department forward for that. There's a few details on what did pass. We were given $100 million in this year, so 15-16 money that's non-lapsing up through FY18. The intent of the bill is, or the law is to be used for air conditioning, 1,000 classrooms, heat abatement, and efficiencies. And I just want to stress that there's those 3 parts to this. It's not just AC. The money was not tied to GEMS. It came from an unanticipated Medicaid reimbursement that they decided to utilize that money. I'm going to kind of refer to the handout that we provided you and just kind of step you through that, and then obviously open it up to questions. So the phase 1 and 2, the assessment and analysis and the review and recommendations, all of those are already complete. We did do this. We did do both of those phases again, pre having any of the funding in our hands, which again was a bit of a risk, but at the same time we wanted to be postured so that if we did receive the money, which we did, we would be ready to go. So based on those findings in the field and on the campuses, projects have been divided into specific construction packages, each focused on specific improvements. So phase 3, which is what we're in right now, is design. I will tell you that we did immediately after the governor signed the bill, we did go in for an ask. We did ask for $100 million. BNF came back to us, and we currently have $45 million to utilize right now. With again, the promise of $55 million will be to follow. We've been trying to figure out how to best manage this, and we've kind of divided this up into different. While we're in phase 3, we're also kind of concurrently running with the phase 5, 6, and 7 as well. But just trying to explain this to you. So we took phase 1, and we realized the priority right now, given the governor's direction, is that we get AC in as many classrooms as possible before the end of the year, with the target obviously being 1,000. So part 1A is primarily PVAC that we can put in portables. That's again an easier solution than some of the other projects that we have going. So again, we're currently in the process of going through a series of rounds for that, with the idea that just by doing that for these first 33 schools, we'll reach around 130 portable classrooms with PV-type AC systems. Again, the idea to those as well being that we will not have any kind of increase in electrical usage just due to the fact that they're primarily PV powered. We also have a number of projects that are already out for Campbell, Lima, Caminola Elementary School in that complex area there. Those are all out for bid and in the process of the bidding cycle for that. As well as there's 25 portables on Campbell alone that need AC, and we are in the process of going out for bid on those as well. We've also got a list there of the 33 schools that'll be basically part of part 1E, if you will. The second phase is where we go into each of these schools, which we've already done. We're developing basically the bid packages for those concurrently along with all these others. But we're well on our way to getting those out for bid. It's just we cannot flood the entire market all at one time with all of these bids. We're intentionally phasing those out. Of those 33 schools, about another 830 classrooms will be provided AC, and again, bringing our total up to around 960. From there, we'll continue to go down the list and try and figure out where, in which classrooms, which portables we will next go into. The rest of the document here just kind of outlines where we are. We're really in the heart of the bidding process right now, with a lot of moving parts on each of these different packages. But I just want to add one note. There's been a lot of, we've gotten inundated with a lot of questions on how we are going through this process. We are using this two-step low bid process, which is new to us. But again, I think it's the way ahead. What's that doing? It is restricting, again, the people that we have to deal with, to be honest, and allowing us to basically qualify them or pre-qualify them before they're allowed to bid. We had an initial interest of about 500 contractors. Again, there's speculation that we were not getting the word out. We distributed it in all the normal ways in which we normally distribute, and actually went through a lot of extra effort and even extended the window out by a week just because we wanted people to try and, again, apply. Some of the things we were looking at in that pre-qualifying round, workers' comp type situations, the chances are most of this construction is going to be during the school year around our students and faculty, and we just wanted to make sure the companies had a good safety record for one. We looked at other things like have they been in business for at least 5 years. We just didn't want a bunch of startup mom and pop type operations bidding on some of these larger projects. So with that though, the window did close for that pre-qualifying. We have 19 that pre-qualified, and because of that, we're looking at obviously reopening that qualifying process up here in the near future to reassess and get more contractors on board. As I alluded to, again, we're concurrent to working through phase 5, 6, and 7. I think everyone's looking at the phase 7 as far as construction complete. As of right now, again, it looks like we may not have 1,000 classrooms AC by the end of the year. We certainly will be in that January, February timeframe when we're seeing completion of that, and we are still on track for that. I just want to reiterate again what the law says: $100 million to be used for 1,000 classrooms AC. We anticipate getting a lot higher than 1,000 eventually, but again, our target right now is for 1,000, along with heat abatement and efficiencies. But the first priority, obviously, and the way we're leaning right now is trying to get us AC in as many schools as we can. There were a lot of different. There's another bill that got approved with a lot of reporting requirements, and the idea there being do utilize these efficiency measures as much as possible to try and make, again, our net usage not increase. Again, there's nothing in writing that says it can increase, but we want to try and that is basically our approach. So that we do not have to go back next year and ask for a substantially larger utility budget. There was one follow-up question from the last BOE that just was specifically aimed at the Campbell complex. And I didn't know, I just break this out real quick. Campbell High, there's 149 classrooms on Campbell High. 44 have AC, so 105 of those need to be addressed for cooling in some way. And if you're, the whole complex, the Campbell complex, again, total of 573 classrooms, 342 of those do have AC already, and 231 that need cooling. And just one last point. We acknowledge we're entering the summer season here. It's going to get hot. We've had the hottest months on record so far, even in April. We acknowledge that. So the DOE, we've sat down as a team. We've talked to our principals. We've talked to our complex area superintendents about other ways in which we can just be smart about the way we're operating in the environments we're in. The fact is, it's 2 or 3 month period where, again, the last 2 or 3 hours of the day are really the intense ones. So ways in which we can manage or bring kids through a facility like this, for example, a library. We're actually working with the library folks because we have a lot of libraries co-located with our schools, but looking at ways in which we can cycle students through cool facilities like that, cool facilities like that throughout the day, just to try and alleviate any kind of heat issues. And again, we're going to produce some guidance and just some guidelines, some general guidelines for principals here as we start the next school year. With that, I'll open it up to any questions.
Any questions for? All the time, sure.
Thanks for the update and presentation. One question I have about the whole, I guess it would be with regard to the AC installation, is about maintenance and upkeep of the AC once they're installed. So one of the pediatricians that I work with has a grant to do an asthma assessment across the non-Cooley-Waianae complex area. So she's going school to school, interviewing students, parents, and teachers about asthma rates and all sorts of other focus group activities that they're doing around this subject, because they are, in most cases, in those schools, higher than our state and also the national average for incidence of asthma. What she's found is particularly disturbing, given that some of these classrooms have been air conditioned due to heat issues, but also because of dust and other issues. So there have been a couple teachers who have had to go on extended leave because their asthma was so exacerbated, not necessarily by the AC, it's undetermined yet, but potentially by the lack of follow-up maintenance on those units. And then secondly, just little things like screens not being installed in windows and the amount of dust and other asthma exacerbating environmental things. So the suggestion from these focus groups and from our pediatrician leading this NIH study is, A, we'd love to share the results of this study with you, but B, when you're looking at the long-term costs of this and how we maintain it, it's not just the data you get from facilities maintenance, but if you could go down to the school level and ask teachers in their classrooms, what are the issues with the AC or other heat abatement strategies as they are installed, so we don't end up solving one problem to create another, and especially exacerbating chronic diseases in our classrooms.
I would love to get the report when you do get it. We certainly acknowledge that, and to be honest, it's a frustration of ours. we asked for $1 million for AC repairs last year, and we got funded for zero. That's just the reality of where we're at. So we acknowledge that you got the cost of installing something, you got the operating costs, i.e. the filters and cleaning and the things that the school normally would be doing. You got maintenance costs, then you have replacement costs, plus utility costs. And that's the story we've been trying to, again, tell everybody that wants to just slap AC on everything. But this does come at a huge cost. And all of those do play a factor. So that's why we're trying to do this in a smart way. To your point, yes, maintenance and again, the operational aspect, the cleaning, the filters, all that kind of stuff, it is a huge undertaking. And oftentimes falls on the custodian. Sometimes the custodian isn't even properly trained. I'm being very honest with you here, but those are all stuff that in areas that we're definitely.
Thanks, Dan. On the executive summary on the facilities building branch closing report, I'm trying to figure out whether funds that were released are imputed into this report, or where do I find the 45 million that was
Right,
already released?
those are not on that report yet. The funds that you do see on there, I think, are the Campbell, which were previous year funds that, again, are more for the heat abatement type stuff that we're doing on Building O and whatnot. You wouldn't see those in there yet.
So that'll be in the fourth quarter.
Right, and we will definitely, we'll definitely be tracking that, obviously, almost in a separate bucket to make sure that we're not.
And then point of clarification, why did the other 55 million not get released? Was there any reason they did?
We really, well, we've been in dialogue with them. They were comfortable with releasing that. They asked us for, well, we went in with the ask of 100 million. And again, just doing the rough math, they were, again, came up with you can get close to 1,000 with 45 million. Again,
So they approved 100 million. They released 45, but they're asking us to justify the other 55.
Yeah, so the legislature, through the bill, did the $100 million appropriation. The department made the request for the full 100 released because it's current year money. The BNF notified us this week or the end of last week that 45 million was released, but really no timing on when the additional 55 will be released to us.
But are they requiring certain things to be provided to them in order to get the 55 million?
There's some conversation around AC versus the other items in the bill, which outline heat abatement and energy efficiency measures. And this is not a bill solely for air conditioning, it has multiple pieces to it. So the plan that we have is to utilize the 100 million for AC, heat abatement, and energy efficiency measures.
I guess my other worry is that, just like with the vendors that you identified during the procurement or the bidding process, is the lack of the release of the 55 million going to impede your progress being made on securing the appropriate equipment?
Again, I think that I have a capacity issue as far as just the ability to get all these projects out. I would love to say I've got 100 million, we're ready to go. But I mean, I think it does come down to a capacity issue because this year alone, our CIP expenditures, we've expended $160 million so far this year, just for that, and that's that same office now that has this $100 million estimate. And our CIP budget for next year obviously is good. So again, there's a bit of a capacity issue there. So it is a bit of a concern. Again, that's where we are taking that and anticipating the 55 million, and I'm not sure exactly how much percentage-wise, but will be used towards our heat abatement efforts and our efficiency efforts. A good portion of that will definitely be used for those. So, and obviously, we're emphasizing right now the AC stuff, but and we'll follow up with the heat abatement and the efficiency stuff to follow on. But I hope that answers your question.
I just hope that getting the 55 million doesn't become a challenge, recognizing that logistically it may not be possible for you to use all 100 million. The last thing I want to see is that you don't get to 55 million, but you do have the capacity to get the work done.
We definitely agree.
Ken. Thank you. Just to amplify that point, 55 million, when, in terms of timing, in terms of actually making an impact during the coming school year, 16-17 school year, when would you have to know that you got that in order to make a meaningful impact in the upcoming school year?
And that's right, I think.
That's where with the 45 million, we're trying to hit as much as we can. Hopefully we'll get a lot of those runs done.
I got that, and I kudos, you know, basically the whole discussion up until now has been 100 million for 1,000 classrooms. Now you're gonna do, you found through the work that you've done, you're projecting that you're gonna be able to do 960 classrooms for 45 million, which is close to the goal for less than half the money. But the need is far greater than 1,000 classrooms, right?
Yes, sir.
So, I mean, 1,000 was a admirable goal, but it's not the whole enchilada. So now we have the 100 million. You have you in place, and by the way, I just have to, I can't express enough my admiration for the work that you've done. I think the work that you and your staff have done should be recognized enough to give you the credibility that you're not going to waste the money. Schools need the money, and some bureaucrat in budget and finance is telling you that you haven't jumped through enough hoops. That's basically what it is. There is no expertise on need abatement in the Department of Budget and Finance, right? That you're aware of? They haven't brought you an expert who said,
Yes, sir. That's true.
so I'm saying things that you can't say, but, it really bothers me. The whole community knows that the need is there. And by demonstrating that you can almost reach the goal with 45 million, and demonstrating all the things that you've done in heat abatement that aren't just slapping air conditioners into rooms that don't even have the power, you've already proven yourself. And I just don't understand. I understand that there might be staging it out, but to just leave it unknown, you get less than half, and we'll think about the rest. Really bothers me. The other thing that I want to mention is that I think you acknowledge that you will do some more pre-qualification. I would encourage that. I saw the article, and I really appreciate that you had so many contractors. I know that you folks made the effort, but it's kind of a safety valve. If people missed it, or you miss people, then once in a while, without making your staff work 24 hours a day, give them another chance. If they missed the first time, there's going to be plenty of work coming down the pipe. So I hope you follow through with that.
We acknowledge that, because the qualification package that they had to submit, again, with some detail to it, so no one was really sure if we were ever going to even get the funding, so I think there was kind of a lack of people applying. Once the governor was on TV and the signing was complete, then our phones started ringing.
Okay, thank you, then.
Thank you, Dan. Any other questions on heat abatement? No, thank you very much, Dan. We appreciate your work. Our next agenda item is a presentation on an update of the department's supplemental budget request for 2016-17 fiscal year and the conference committee decisions in that regard. Amy is here to present.
So in front of you, you have a memo that really recaps a little bit of the process. So we started with the board approving the budget back in October of 2015, went to the governor in December, and we've been in front of the board a couple of times throughout this process as the budget moved through the legislature. So for your convenience, we've attached the overall committee report from the conference draft that has input from both the House and the Senate, giving an overview of the overall budget and what's happening in both operating budget and CIP, so capital improvement projects budget. And that's for the whole state. Then the next attachment B goes into the Board of Education supplemental budget request, and each step of the process, and then where we ended up. So the far right side column is what was approved through Conference Draft 1, and highlights are weighted student formula, the 2% increase of $16.5 million. The other two big pieces are utilities of $5.2 million. Again, the department altered that, from the $10 million that we asked for as the board approved. The department went back to update those estimates to a $5.2 million request, and that was approved. And then the school bus contracts of $6.9 million was approved. Utilities and school bus is something that we've been going to the legislature for a few years now on an annual basis, having to true that up. So those are now in our budget as recurring items. So that is very good news for us going forward on not having to expend the time in justifying those expenditures. I mean, it'll be part of our base budget. We have the quarterly monitoring reports for those amounts again. So it is still top of mind and we're still monitoring. Attachment C goes into other non-general funds and adjustments. There was a question earlier about the impact aid ceiling. That was a request that went through one of the drafts but was not part of the final conference draft. So we will go back to the table on that for the biennium budget request to get that trued up close for what that ceiling is, as well as other ceiling adjustments not approved. So that's attachment C. Attachment D, the Department of Education, specifically in the education section, has one proviso around a budget amount that was provided, $500,000 for declining balance debit card pilot project. So this outlines a little bit more about what that project is. Basically, it's I think to about 1,000 teachers, giving them, it's sort of like a P card or a credit card, but it's loaded with a dollar amount, so $500 for them to expend. So it's up to me to determine the policies and procedures behind that to ensure that these funds are expended in a fiscally sound manner, following procurement rules, and the follow-up on reporting on how that money was expended, and then determining if that process is something that can be rolled out to 12,000 potential teachers. So that is something that we'll be working through in the near term and trying to determine how to roll that out. There are a couple of provisos that are not printed out, but that were in other areas of the budget that do have a link back to education. I can send you a follow-up on those, but we're just finding those. Other departments have called us and say, hey, we can't do something unless we work with DOE. So we are finding those in the budget as well. So we'll get that as a follow-up report out to you. And then attachment E goes through the CIP budget. Keep in mind that the CD1 in the far right column gets added to the actual Act 119 fiscal year 16-17 amounts. So those two columns get added together on the available appropriation for fiscal year 17. Of note on here, we have our lump sum amounts that are provided at the top. The long list of items are legislative add-ons. One of those pieces is Solomon Elementary. That is one of the situations where we are getting the Department of Defense Office of Economic, but they provide, the feds provide 80% of the funding for either renovating or new construction of a school, and the state has to come up with 20% match. So this line item gives us both the ceiling for the, it's an increase of the ceiling for the appropriation for the 80% that's coming from the feds, and then also allocating a portion of the 20% state match. So that's good news. Then there is also a Campbell High new classroom building on the back. We had asked for $35 million and received $12 million as appropriated.